Breathe, breathe, breathe. Okay, so. Okay. 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 Warriors don't cry. So, hello everyone. So, today's video is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit different. I know I've been doing makeup, makeup tutorials and things like that. Today's video is going to be more of a story time video. So, it's going to be a little bit, how can I say? Personal, family, just life situations, things that, just go on, day-to-day life and things like that. So, that's going to be today. So I guess let's get right into it. Okay. So, I always start with my topic of the days, and I know I always like to deliver a message to my viewers and, talk about things that, will uplift them, get them going, have the strength that they need to, persevere in each day. And that way, we can get shit done. So, excuse my language. So I know I'm the type of person that, I refuse to get emotional because I feel like it's okay to have your moment, but it's also, you have to also like realize like, hey, get back up, So, because obviously if you are sad, if you are depressed, if you're like, it's okay. We are humans. Humans are allowed to feel. That's what makes us human. But at the same time, you can't let that deter you. You have to, keep on going every single day, and you have to have a positive outlook. You have to think positively. If that's what's going to really, like, get shiz done. Whatever is going to, get shiz done, get that done. Personally for me, I've always been, very ambitious. I've always, whether it was school, with work, career, business, I've always, it's like you keep going, just keep rolling, keep going, keep going. And, so right now it's a little sticky, because how can I say, currently, with my dad, I know it's a touchy subject. It's really private, personal. My dad, he's always been in my life. My dad has always been there. He has, been there, always been there. And I appreciate that because, I understand not everyone has that. So, sometimes like I'd had conversations with my friends and, they, sometimes like I would, have conflict with my dad, just because, I'm very strong-minded. I'm just a very, I don't like being told what to do. Sometimes, I know sometimes you have to listen. You have to, you have to follow, the procedure. You have to follow the plan, follow the system. So sometimes, obviously me trying to, be the best way I can, sometimes, I can't, always abide by that. Sometimes people have to do what they have to do to survive, to live, to provide for themselves and things like that. So, I would always think like that because, I didn't come from, like the Spanish saying, because I do also speak Spanish. It's like, nacer en una cuna de oro. O sea, basically meaning like when you were like born into wealth. So, I know some people are, born into, that wealth. And obviously, like for me, that's what I'm trying to create. If, God allows me to have children, right? So that's also like a personal choice because, women shouldn't, feel forced or should be obliged, tomato. They shouldn't have to, you know, have to feel like you have to have children, Obviously, it's a personal choice. Like, you don't, as a woman, it's your body. Respect yourself, right? You know, obviously have like a code of mode, a core mode, a moral code. So, you know, knowing what are your limits, what are your boundaries, when to say no, and, you know, when to say yes, you know, depending on, like I said, whatever makes you happy. Whether that's like, you know, obviously working out, you know, because you're going to be in shape, drinking plenty of water, drinking your fluids, you know, eating healthy, things like that. I know sometimes we get our cravings and, you know, we want to indulge. So, you know, like our cheat days and stuff like that. But, you know, also, like I said, have limitations and knowing when, okay, like this is enough. You know, you don't want to obviously overdo it. And, you know, share, you know, having acts of kindness, you know, compassion as well. So things like that. And, you know, like I said, I mean, you know, people take those things in consideration. You know, people appreciate that when, you know, like you thought of them, like, oh, you know, like you didn't have to do that. You know, this was very kind and considerate of you. Because that goes a long way. Like the way you behave, people, you know, they realize that, like, wow, like, you know, if it's their birthday, you know, show up, like, show out, you know, just send a text message. You know, it's like, hey, you know, set reminders on your calendar, like, oh, you know, if it's a family member, someone you love, someone you keep up with, you know. So, you know, plan things out, which is something I personally feel like I need to also, you know, do sometimes. But like I said, we have to work with what we have. So, you know, it's not always going to have to be perfect. And it's like the Nike slogan. It says, just do it. O sea, just do it, you know, don't, you know, think too much, just get it done. So, yeah, there's that. And like I said, I know it's like, you know, talking about my, this is going to be my dad, but again, I feel like it's like a little personal situation. But, you know, my dad knows that I don't give up. I know I have my temper, things like that. But like I said, I'm here, you know, we got to keep going. Like I said, depending on your goals, what your goals are, work towards that and, you know, stick to the plan. Fuck your mood. So yeah, so like I said, take breaks. We're all human. We will all have our moments and things like that. So yeah, just stick through it, you know, follow through, and like I said, just whatever it is, whatever helps you get to each day, get through to each day, do that. You know, so, you know, it could be religion, it could be like your beliefs, your spirituality, you know, whatever that case may be, do that. So that's my message, right? So my message is for you to be productive, you know, to get things done. And, you know, like I said, you know, if there's a problem, fix it, you know, make time to do that. If obviously, like, you know, if it's something that you don't want it to be like a snowball effect, right? It's like a snowball on an avalanche, you know, like in, you know, Colorado, or, you know, like, you know, when you're in Switzerland, when there's mountains, and it's like, what does it do? It starts off as a small ball, and then what to keep going? It's going to keep rolling and rolling, and it's going to keep advancing, and it's going to be into like a huge, like, what is it, like avalanche. So yeah, so my point with that is pretty much saying that, you know, obviously you want to like prevent it from being a huge problem. So it's better to get it taken care of versus delaying it and, you know, being just a huge thing. Like, just, you know, like I said, my message here is don't be greedy. Don't be greedy because, you know, that's, you know, not the best trait to have. So, you know, like I said, for me, I'll advocate into like compassion, kindness, being good to others, and things like that. Whatever goes around comes back around. So yeah, you know, have to take those things in mind. You know, like I said, there's money enough for everyone. Everyone always obviously wants to, you know, do, if that's what you want, of course, because I know not everyone is money hungry. I know everyone is okay with having very simple things, you know, not to, you know, not like an exaggerated amount of things, and they're happy. Some people care more about just, you know, being good with their family, or just having, you know, stability, you know, having a roof over their heads. People are just okay with that, and that's okay. Like, you know, whatever it is that makes you happy, whatever brings you life, whatever is like, whatever fuels you. You know, people make time for the things that they care about, right? And like I said, just take others into consideration, and don't be selfish, because again, it's people take that, and then you can hurt someone, and they might hold a grudge on you, or they might just, for me, I like to be all equal. I like to be fair. I don't like to lie, cheat. Again, I am human, so obviously I'm not perfect. Like, I will make mistakes. I'm not gonna sit here and say like, oh yeah, like I have it all figured out, because I don't. Right? It's a part of life. You're gonna learn as you get older, as you become wiser and things like that. You learn, you progress, and you work with people. Because I work with people all the time, right? So yeah, that's just the transition and stuff like that. So yeah, that is what I have for today. And like I said, guys, I know I was gonna start talking about my dad's situation and things like that, but I don't know if that's something I want to talk about just yet. So yeah, so there's that. And like I said, I hope everyone has an amazing, wonderful day. And like I said, I'm here. I love you all. And like I said, I hope to grow this channel, my audience, as much as possible. I want to be a good example, a good role model, and for things to come. So thank you all, and have a blessed rest of your day.